But let's just talk about. I want to talk about two speeches that we had. We had Warren Dean's speech, which was superb. Tony Abbott described it as one of the best speeches on race relations in this country. That follows only a couple of weeks ago from Jacinta Nampijinpa Price's brilliant speech, also at the National Press Club. You'll be amused, Rita. They tried to put both Jacinta and Warren in the broom cupboard out the back, called the Situation Room or whatever. Very amusing. But Noel Pearson got the big ballroom and all the rest. I mean, the way they've tried to rig this thing at every single stage. Warren Dean's speech, like Jacinta's, was superb. We had Jacinta on the program here last week. We've got Warren on the program coming up shortly. But Noel Pearson's speech really, really disturbed me. And it was this little bit in particular, which is race baiting, is dividing the nation deliberately, is offensive in the extreme. I'm an Indigenous Australian of Anglo-Celtic background. Thank you very much, Noel Pearson, as are you. Listen to what Noel Pearson had to say.
I say to multicultural communities in the campaign that I'm involved in around the country, I say to them, listen, where do you fit into Australia? It's a bit unclear. Are you with the mob from the UK? Are you kind of honorary settlers? Because some of you are the wrong colour. Or you don't come from Northern Europe. You come from Africa, you come from Asia, you come from South America, you come from all over the joint, you come from China. I say to them, where do you fit in Australia?
So let me just say this to you, Noel Pearson, that was absolutely disgusting. Why isn't the Race Discrimination Commissioner coming down on Noel Pearson, dragging him in front of the Human Rights Commission? Because that was an utter disgrace. Every one of us in Australia strives to make this the most successful multiracial nation on earth. And how dare you, Noel Pearson, sit there and say somehow that we, white Northern European Anglos, are different, that you've got to choose between the two mobs. How dare you? That was the most disgusting thing I have heard. And anybody out there who is thinking of voting yes, you are voting yes to racism. I've said that from day one, and I will say that all the way through. Yes means yes to racism. And if you can look yourself in the mirror after listening to that and then voting yes, good luck to you, because it was disgusting. Well, Rita.
Well, it certainly was not in the spirit of unity, in the spirit of counting every Australian on equal terms. To basically tell migrants, look at the colour of your skin and decide which side you're on based on your skin tone. I mean, really, that's what we're reducing ourselves to, our values to. Oh, well, I mean, it's offensive on a number of levels. And I think the one criticism I have of the No campaign is that they haven't sufficiently sculpted a message for the migrant community. Perhaps they feel they don't need to, but we have seen so many faith leaders from migrant communities, some self-appointed community leaders, come out in support of the Yes camp. It's almost across the board, looking at different communities. And I think that is an issue. I think for migrants in particular, this notion that their children aren't going to have equal rights, that there's going to be a special group that's going to have privileges and certain rights under the Constitution that they're not entitled to, on its face is offensive, because, you know, they have made the decision to move to Australia. It's unbelievably offensive,
James, in this nation where going back to the 1860s in places like South Australia and WA, the laws were there to make sure that every person, black, white, and everything in between was equal. Those laws have been in place in places like South Australia and WA since the 1860s.
But beyond that, though, I mean, you know, Rita, you make a very good point about the migrants, and many, many migrants will have come here escaping specifically countries that had rules around this sort of thing. If you came here from Malaysia, you were coming from a country that had special rules for different people depending on whether they're ethnically Malay or not. But the thing about this, and I think we're going to need to rewrite, maybe closer to Christmas, the old carol, The First Noel. We're going to have to rewrite it, The Worst Noel.
The Worst Noel.
I
love it.
For Noel Pearson, because the thing is,
Noel.
Because what we're talking about
Excellent.
here, he has this whole shtick that he runs, and he says, you know, there's three pillars to the Australian experience: Indigenous Australia, Anglo settlement, and multicultural modern Australia. And what he did with that speech there, he completely stuck dynamite under it, and he took the plunger and he went kaboom and blew it up, because what he has just said there is that there's only two of those pillars that are legitimate. One of them is Indigenous Australia, and the other is modern multicultural. But that middle bit, Anglo-Celtic Australia, which gave us our common law institutions and everything else, illegitimate, settler, colonial, bad.
And the reason migrants come here is because of everything Western civilization has brought this nation, because they come here for better opportunity for their children. They come here because it's a peaceful, prosperous country where you do have equal opportunity regardless of your background. So to suggest that migrants who uphold those values are going to be attracted to something that actually is completely at odds with that, something that goes back to your ethnicity determines whether you're entitled to participate in this process, being the voice. I mean, why would you think that would appeal to the migrant community? It really is treating us like we're some sort of useful idiots of the left. And I think migrants need to take note of this. If they're not engaged with this debate, get engaged, because this is the Constitution.
And one final quick point on that. I mean, also the faith leaders. Like, I mean,
leaders.
How funny is it seeing Labour saying, "Oh, and how wonderful are the Christian leaders coming out and supporting us?" When, of course, next week after the referendum is, or 2 weeks ago when the referendum is done, they will say, "I'll keep religion out of politics. You God bother us. Yeah, we don't need you anymore."